Hello and thanks for joining us on Chicago Tonight. I'm Brandis Friedman. Here's what we're looking at.
This moment calls for those with means to put more skin in the game.
City Council members back to the drawing board after Mayor Johnson's budget proposal fails to advance. Illinois residents will soon be able to carry their driver's license and state ID on their phone. What you should know.
Months before that bill lands in your mailbox, local governments, cities, counties, and school districts decide how much money they need.
And Cook County property owners are receiving their property tax bills, but how exactly is your bill calculated? We explain. First off tonight, Congressman Jesus Chuy Garcia is being censured by his own colleagues. 24 Democrats, including Illinois' Eric Sorensen and Bill Foster, joined all Republicans in the U.S. House to vote in favor of a resolution rebuking Garcia for his late decision to not seek re-election. It set up a succession plan that may help his chief of staff, Patty Garcia, no relation, take over his seat in Congress since she was the only candidate ready with signatures in time to file paperwork to run. The censure effort was led by Democratic Congresswoman Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez of Washington, who says it's important to call out, quote, election subversion by lawmakers on both sides of the aisle. Garcia has said he left the race for family and health reasons. House leaders defended Garcia as a progressive champion and opposed the resolution. And a programming note, will be joined by Patty Garcia here on Thursday evening. Meanwhile, Senator Dick Durbin today addressed something he's taken criticism for, his vote on legislation that ended that historic 43-day government shutdown. Durbin says he was inspired by air traffic controllers already working stressful jobs without a paycheck across 2 pay periods.
That was one of the compelling reasons that I decided to vote to open the government. In my mind, we just couldn't run the risk that these men and women still trying to do their best would be under such pressure that they might not make the right decision at the right moment. We can't let that happen, certainly not at the expense of politicians deciding who gets a political advantage out of this.
The senator met with air traffic controllers and, as you can see, TSA workers today at O'Hare Airport. They said they started a food pantry for some workers as the shutdown dragged on. Durbin also points to the shortage of controllers increasing their stress level. Only 10,000 on the job when 14,000 are needed, meaning many work 10-hour days, 6 days a week. The population inside the controversial ICE detention facility in suburban Broadview has plummeted in recent weeks as federal agents begin to decamp from the Chicago region. During a hearing today, the federal government told a judge that only 4 detainees are being held in the facility, a drastic reduction weeks after detainees testified they'd been crammed into rooms with more than 100 people for multiple days. The hearing is part of a case brought by the ACLU and the MacArthur Justice Center over what advocates claim are inhumane and unlawful conditions. The facility has been at the center of clashes between protesters, local officials, and federal agents. Another hearing on whether to make a judge's temporary restraining order a permanent one is slated for December, and there's more of this story on our website. Up next, Mayor Johnson faces fierce opposition to his budget proposal. Alder people give their 2 cents right after this.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by the Alexandra and John Nichols family, the Jim and Kay Mabey family, the Polk Brothers Foundation, and the support of these donors.
Mayor Brandon Johnson's $16.6 billion budget plan suffered a major blow this week when the City Council's Finance Committee rejected it in a 25-10 vote. A number of alderpeople opposed Johnson's proposed head tax on corporations, arguing it would stifle business growth in Chicago. Johnson says he's standing firm, setting up a debate likely to run close to that December 31st deadline. Joining us now are 6th Ward Alderman William Hall, representing communities including Chatham, Auburn Gresham, and Inglewood. 34th Ward Alderman Bill Conway, representing downtown communities like the West and South Loop. And over Zoom, First Ward Alderman Daniel Espada, representing communities like Logan Square, Westtown, and Wicker Park. Gentlemen, welcome back.
Thanks for
joining us, of course.
Thanks for having us.
First, I want to get everyone's reaction, your initial reaction when Mayor Johnson's revenue plan was voted down in committee yesterday. Alderman Hall, we'll start with you.
Well, I said that again, Trump has found his way into City Hall. These are some of the same tactics we saw in D.C. with the government shutdown, and again, we now see him in the city of Chicago. We see nitpicking, we see arguments, but no solutions, no counters to negotiate. And so essentially at the end of the day, I see the beginning of a stand down until we find a budget that I believe makes sure that Chicagoans are safe, with financially and also in neighborhoods. So again, my hope is that these Trump tactics don't last long in City Council.
Alderman Conway.
You know, what I hear in the 34th Ward and all over the city is we need to show taxpayers that we are being efficient with their tax dollars before we go asking for more. And Ernst & Young identified several areas of savings that we heard about in a hearing last week, and we need to really go back to the departments and show taxpayers we are being efficient with those dollars, that we have worked that out before we do anything like a head tax.
Yeah, and we're going to get a little bit more into that report from Ernst & Young as well. Alderman Espada, same question to you. What did it say to you yesterday when that failed in committee?
I think it was sobering. We know that we have our divides in terms of how we move forward with this budget, but I think all of us, the 3 of us, the 50 of us, could agree we want a stable and safe city. We want a transparent budget that the people of Chicago can trust. And now we have a clearer sense of the work that it's going to take to get there.
Okay. Alderman Hall, you've been a vocal supporter of Johnson's budget proposal and of the head tax. Do you see a way forward without it?
Yeah, I don't see a way forward unless corporations pay their fair share. Let's look at this. Number one, the top 5 performing corporations in Chicago are capped valued at close to over $500 million rather. So you have corporations that are worth over $500 million. Number one, we've made concessions, right? If your corporation is in the CETA area, if you are hiring from employees from CETA areas, tourist zones, investment zones, you're exempt. So we've made concessions already for corporations. And in those concessions, we are saying that this tax would be reinvested directly into the communities, number one, that need investment, especially around violence, mental health support. So I don't believe that we allow corporations to continue. Matter of fact, $9 billion was made by corporations in the span of 4 months. And so it's now the time for corporations to pay for the roads that they drive on, pay for the utilities that they use, and stop breaking the backs of their employees and using them as pawns to threaten to leave.
Except this failed yesterday in finance, 25-10.
Yeah.
How do you see, like, what is the path forward if your colleagues are opposed
Well,
to
ask the 25. At the end of the day, again, you can vote against, but we have not seen a counter solution to this issue. To nitpick over reports and nitpick over things that doesn't solve the problem is nothing more than politics. Again, I want to talk to those who go to these corporations that make $50,000 a year. Those are the size that I'm on. $50,000, $60,000 a year now is only worth $40,000 to $50,000. So, for example, you have a janitor, or let's take someone that's working at mid-level at a director's position. You make $100,000 a year. That's only worth $60,000. We take out taxes, we take out increased fees and other things that are coming from the federal government. And so I'm on the side of the person who is paying more into the city of Chicago than the CEOs are. And so what we are now missing the fact is that people cannot afford to continue to be broken by corporations, as well as the disinvestment from the federal government. Let's not forget that this government has turned its back on investing in Chicago. So our budget, which is predicated on federal grants, our budget, which is predicated on strong workers, is what's under attack. I'm defending those who need 9-to-5s but do not want to get broken by corporations.
Okay, so the mayor has said that he is not backing down from the head tax. As we know, here he is.
We stand by our budget proposal, but let me be clear. There are not any magic third options between cuts to core services and layoffs and revenue. Anyone who wants to pretend otherwise is being disingenuous. We stand behind the progressive revenue that we have put forward because this moment calls for those with means to put more skin in the game.
There you were, Alderman, right behind the mayor right there. So, Alderman Conway, what do you make of the mayor's argument that a denial of the head tax would mean cuts to core services or layoffs? Because wasn't this head tax intended to cover youth services and anti-violence intervention programming?
Well, first of all, we're talking about $100 million out of a $16.7 billion budget. But like I said, we really need to be looking at what we can do efficiently in terms of making sure that we have all we have. But I mean, I saw that Candidate Brandon Johnson was against property taxes. Then last year he said he wouldn't pass a budget without a property tax increase. Now he's going to say he's going to veto a budget that has a property tax increase in there. I don't want a property tax increase, but he's been all over the map in terms of what he wants. But the bigger issue is, if we are going to get out of our fiscal mess in this city, we need to grow the size of the city. And that is going to take housing, and that is going to take jobs. And by putting a jobs tax out there, we are literally disincentivizing the behavior that we need to create in this city.
Alderman LaSpada, you joined 18 other alders in pushing to delay the Finance Committee vote on the proposal, a move that ultimately failed because then there was the vote where the Finance Committee rejected it. Why did you think the vote should be held later, especially considering what we know about how late budget negotiations went last year? Did you think the votes didn't exist to pass it? Did you see that?
Well, I voted for that motion to delay because we know from talking to our colleagues that they need more time. There's questions that need to be answered, particularly in light of the report that we got from Cook County Treasurer Pappas yesterday about the impacts of shifting property tax bills in the city of Chicago. There's questions about how do we fund government in a way that is progressive, that, as Alderman Hall called for, asks those who can pay more and pay their fair share to pay their fair share, but also do it in ways that continues to grow our economy rather than deter economic growth. That's a needle that we can thread, and I know that we can thread it, but it deserves more time and more deliberation. If we knew that the votes weren't there for the revenue package, we should have taken the time to get to a place that everyone can agree on.
So earlier, Alderman Conway, you mentioned the city commissioning that report from the private accounting firm Ernst & Young, outlining between $530 billion and $1.4 billion in potential savings in new revenue. Mayor Johnson's budget only includes about $80 million worth of cuts recommended by that report. Alderman Hall, first to you. Why not more?
Well, first of all, I sit on that committee. And number one, name the last time you've seen a mayor that said, come in and see the books. So I commend the mayor for literally auditing our books. Number two, when you look at those recommendations phase in over time, especially in the year 2026. So the committee is doing its job in finding efficiencies for the year 2026. But I will say this, the issue that we're facing in 2025, again, we had 12 months to literally present ideas. I have yet to find an idea that does not break the backs of Chicagoans. If you ask any Chicagoan right now, do you want to pay more on your property taxes? They'll say no. If you ask them, do you want to pay more on garbage fees? They'll say no. If you ask them, do you want to get nickel and dime, they will say no on other fees. Essentially, at the end of the day, why are we defending corporations that are worth almost $1 billion, where CEOs live in New Buffalo, Michigan, and other Winnetka-like situations, and why are we defending them when they're not missing a meal, they're not missing any bonuses or paychecks, and we're literally suggesting to the city of Chicago, the 2.3 million Chicagoans, in which over 80% are at or beneath poverty. In my ward in particular, the average income is only $42,000 a year. $42,000 is only $26,000 in spending power, coupled on the fact that rent is going up and other things. So at the end of the day, the question is now, are you going to defend the elite, or are you going to stand on the side of the day-to-day Chicago?
Okay, so Alderman Conway, you have pushed for adopting more of the cuts in the savings that were mentioned or outlined in that Ernst & Young report. I'm going to come to you in just a second because the mayor has said that calls for cuts have been too vague. Here he is.
We hear a lot of calls for cuts, and people like to refer to them as efficiencies. But folks get real quiet when we ask them to provide some of the specifics. And the reality is our city services are essential. Whether it's a snowstorm, icy roads, or thunderstorm or flooding, we will continue to see extreme weather due to climate change, so we need to ensure that we have the staff that we need to meet this reality.
Alderman Conway, what cuts would you make and how?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, to respond to what Alderman Hall says, I agree. We don't want to ask people in the 6th Ward, the 34th Ward, or the 1st Ward for more money, and that's why we have to be efficient with taxpayer dollars. And the report had some clear places to do that. For example, fleet optimization. The average car owned by the city is driven 7,000 miles a year. 7,000 miles a year. And Ernst & Young said we could get $29.6 million in efficiency in year one. There's $3 million of that in the budget. Procurement, only 51% of the stuff that we buy goes through the procurement department. They identified $55 to $111 million of savings we could get through that, only $10 million in this budget. And with regard to real estate, they talked about the number of desks that we're using in the buildings that we lease. And they said essentially of the 4,900 desks that we had, only 3,700 of them were being used. Those are some look like pretty low-hanging fruit that has not been put into this budget. And after hearing this detail from Ernst & Young, I think it's important that we go back to the departments and see, hey, we need to really push you and make sure that you're being efficient on that.
Nobody's disagreeing with that. Matter of fact, some of that has already started. I mean, I'm working with Commissioner Tomlin right now, working with Charlotte Roberts, who's our Chief Procurement Officer. Those things are already in place. Let's talk about now. Right now, as we look into the night hours of this day, we still have not solved on how we're going to balance the budget. Nobody's against what has been mentioned in the Ernst & Young, but it doesn't solve the today problem. Corporations will not get off without paying their fair share. The Ernst & Young report, effective January 1, 2026,
if there
will be
are
effective.
other methods, why not introduce those as well?
And again, they are being done. Some of those efficiency cuts that have been mentioned in the report are in motion. They don't solve for the gap that we have now, but in 2026, in a full calendar year, you will see the breadth and the length of all those efficiencies, which will save us money. But in order to change the course of direction from an audit that started in April of this year, you have to first do the audit. Second, you have to get the contracts. Third, you need to make the deal. All of which is in process now.
Alderman Conway briefly, and then I want to get Alderman Spot in here.
I would merely say the Ernst & Young report is public. Anyone can read it. The city says they put $3 million in fleet optimization there. Ernst & Young said year one, $29.6 million. I could go on and on about the other things. They're clearly not in the budget.
Alderman Laspada.
So the thing is, we sometimes conflate cuts with efficiencies. Efficiency is providing the same high level of service to Chicagoans that they deserve and doing it with the same amount or less revenue. And there's so much more in the Ernst & Young report that we can dig into, even going into 2026. I mean, if you look at that report, the number of supervisors across various departments who have between 1 and 3 direct reports, it is absurd. It's something that you would never see in the private sector. Leaning into civilianization across both the Chicago Police Department and the Chicago Fire Department, that there are a lot of ways that we can inflation adjust different fees for service within the city. There is no single way that we're going to get to a balanced budget. We should all be clear on that. It's efficiencies, it has a revenue side to it, it's more transparency in terms of how we use our revenue. The fact that, Chicagoans should know this, the $126 or so million projected from automated speed enforcement, speed cameras, we violate our own municipal code. We say that that's supposed to be kept in a separate account for 4 specific purposes laid out by state law. We don't do that. We just pour it into the corporate fund.
All right.
I think I'll highlight that as another transparency we need to look at.
I think everyone had hoped that you all would have this figured out before Thanksgiving, but no such luck. We look forward to having all of you back in December once this is figured out. That is where we'll have to leave it for now. Alderman Bill Conway, Daniel Laspada, and William Hall. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for having us.
Up next, mobile IDs are coming to Illinois, but how will it work? We explain right after this. Have you ever left your driver's license at home? Well, soon you'll be able to access it with just a few taps on your phone. A new program launched by the Illinois Secretary of State's office allows residents to add a digital version of their Illinois-issued driver's license or state ID to the Apple Wallet app. Illinois joins 12 other states offering similar mobile options to its residents. WTTW News reporter Eunice Alpasan joins us now with more. Eunice, sounds very cool. How would this work?
So starting tomorrow, the Illinois Secretary of State's office announced that Illinois residents who have an iPhone would be able to present a mobile ID at select businesses and at TSA checkpoints at more than 250 airports in the U.S., including at O'Hare and Midway. And this announcement comes after a law went into effect this year that allows the Secretary of State's office to issue digital versions of state IDs and driver's licenses.
Okay, so does this mean that people can leave their driver's license and their state ID at home now?
Yeah, so that's the catch. You probably shouldn't. The Secretary of State, Alexi Giannoulias, said law enforcement isn't allowed to use mobile ID. And so if you're driving, you should still have a physical driver's license with you. And on top of that, businesses get to choose whether to accept mobile ID, and so it doesn't fully replace a physical ID or driver's license. Giannoulias has said his office is working to expand the number of businesses and venues that do accept mobile ID. We do know that Soldier Field has said it is working with its food and beverage partner to allow fans to use mobile IDs as a form of age verification at concession stands, for instance.
And how secure is this?
That was one of the concerns when this legislation was being enacted. And Secretary of State Alexi Giannoulias said that his office worked with Apple to get this done. And they're saying that once an ID is added to Apple Wallet, that information is encrypted, and so Apple and the state wouldn't be able to know when you use your mobile ID. Giannoulias is also saying that when you present a mobile ID, you don't actually have to hand over your device, and that you can choose which specific information you want to present. So if you just need to prove that you're 21 or older, you can do so without having to also share information such as your address or your license number, for example.
So when the time comes, how can people add their ID to their Apple Wallet app?
Yeah, so starting tomorrow, residents can do so directly onto the Apple Wallet app, and they just have to follow a setup and verification process. But again, a mobile ID doesn't fully replace a physical ID, and you should still carry a physical ID or driver's license with you if you do plan on driving or going out to the bars.
Okay, good idea. And for folks, thank you so much, Eunice Alpasine, because I also wanted to mention for folks who do not have that iPhone, if you've got a Droid, Google, whatever it might be, you can go to our website to read Eunice's full story. It is all at WTTW.com/news. Cook County homeowners are receiving their latest property tax bills, and some are seeing a more dramatic increase than others. Median homeowners from 15 neighborhoods across Chicago's south and west sides saw their bills rise an average of 30%, according to a study by the Cook County Treasurer's Office. But have you ever wondered how your property tax bill gets calculated in the first place? Our Heather Sharon explains.
Property taxes can be a doozy, or rather, how they are calculated can be. Months before that bill lands in your mailbox, local governments, cities, counties, and school districts decide how much money they need. Then the folks in charge break out the calculators to figure out how to spread that amount across all of the properties in the area. That's your tax rate. But it isn't an even split. Your final bill or share is based on the value of your home. After all, the owner of a $100,000 house shouldn't be expected to pay the same as someone with a multi-million-dollar mansion, right? So the number crunchers hit the books, calculating the fair market value of each property using a whole bunch of data, like sale price, lot size, neighborhood, home age, and more, all following a series of steps designed to protect taxpayers from wild swings in their bills. As a property owner, you can appeal your fair market value before it's set. Next up, assessment. In Cook County, residential properties are assessed at 10% of fair market value. If your home is valued at $300,000, the assessed value of your property is $30,000. To help make sure everyone pays their fair share, officials then apply a countywide equalizer to the value of each property. And property owners can get breaks or exemptions for a number of reasons, ranging from old age or military service to just living in their own home. Now it's time to finish up the math. Remember the tax rate from the beginning? Multiply it against that final value and voila, you have your annual property tax bill. And of course, that money goes towards critical community services like schools, healthcare, parks, and libraries. Home sweet home.
Property tax bills are due December 15th, everybody. You can see more from our Emmy Award-winning series, WTTW News Explains, on our website. And that's our show for this Tuesday night. Check out our website for our guide to holiday events happening around the Chicago area. We've got details on light shows, sing-alongs, festive markets, and more. It's all at WTTW.com/holiday events. And join us tomorrow night at 5:30 and at 11. We just heard about homeowners on the city's south and west sides seeing a steep jump in their property taxes. Cook County Assessor Fritz Kagi joins us to discuss. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Brandis Friedman. Thank you for watching. Stay healthy and safe, and have a good night.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a Chicago personal injury and wrongful death firm that gives back to its community in Chicago and beyond.